Hi there! Today we're going to be talking about Queen Isabella I of Castile. Joining me today is going to be Dr. Alexandra Wilhelmsen, Scott Ames, James Smith, and Peter Price. James and Alexandra, can you please give me a little bit of background on Isabella and Spain at this time?
Queen Isabella I was the Queen of Castile and Leon, and along with her husband Ferdinand II of Aragon, brought Castile and Leon together, which ultimately helped to unify Spain.
There were 5 kingdoms in the Iberian Peninsula at the end of the Middle Ages, 4 Christian kingdoms and 1 small Muslim kingdom called Granada. The Christian kingdoms were, going from west to east, Portugal, Castile, the small kingdom of Navarre up in the Pyrenees, and Aragon.
Born in Avila in central West Spain to John II of Castile and Isabella of Portugal, Isabella was in line to the throne after her half-brother Henry and her younger brother Alfonso.
Scott, what can you tell us about Queen Isabella's childhood?
She grew up in the remote castle of Arevalo. It was here, amid the rugged countryside, that Isabella's personality was formed. She grew up learning to ride and hunt, and took a liking for high-spirited horses. Isabella was also educated in poetry, rhetoric, history, philosophy, and music. Like other noblewomen of Spain, she learned to embroider in the intricate designs of the Moors.
When her father died, Henry became King Henry IV, and Isabella and Alfonso were assigned to Henry's care. Isabella's father had provided enough money for her and Alfonso to live comfortably, but Henry took the money for himself and left his siblings in poor living conditions. After Alfonso died, there was great pressure on Henry to name Isabella as his successor, which he did after a war between the two parties. Henry tried to force Isabella into many arranged marriages, but she refused, and she married Ferdinand of Aragon, her second cousin, in secret, and became queen. She began a series of reforms to rectify the damage caused to the country by her brother Henry.
Dr. Wilhelmsen, can you please give us a little more detail about what these reforms were?
When Isabel inherited the throne, or I should say, when the previous ruler died, her half-brother, she immediately had herself crowned queen. But there was another candidate to the throne, Juana la Beltraneja, who was, some people thought yes, some people thought no, the daughter of the previous king. The point is that there was a war of succession, and there was chaos in the land for 5 years. And so her reforms could not start in a full-fledged way until the succession problem was ended, But she and Ferdinand, who inherited the throne of Aragon a few years later, this couple, their main quest was unification. They wanted to unify the Spanish peoples and to come as close as they could to creating one nation. And then the next thing was to try to get policies in place in the different kingdoms that were the same, so that they could work together as a close-knit federation, even though legally they were different countries or they were different states. Isabel's second goal was to reform, to improve the justice system, so that people got justice when they went to the courts, when they went to the law courts, reforming the law courts. Isabel and Ferdinand were the last rulers in medieval style who went around personally holding court. That is to say, people could take their court cases to them and asked, that problems be solved and that cases be tried. And only when they were super complicated would the Isabel and Ferdinand pass them on to professional lawyers. And one of the things the crown did, that Isabel did, was to create a national police force. That national police force was not a huge Big Brother thing. What it meant was that the different towns were required to have to institute a few policemen, and they protected travelers on the roads. And they had a law court. They had law courts, and people were tried, and justice was brought to everybody, the high and the mighty, as well as to the modest folks.
We know Isabella and Fernando were eventually able to unite all 5 Spanish kingdoms. Scott, can you tell us how they managed to incorporate the Muslim kingdom of Granada?
While the king and queen held Christmas court at Valencia in 1481, the Muslims of Granada attacked and seized the Christian-held frontier fortress of Zahara. The Marquis of Cadiz, in a daring mountain assault, took the Muslim fortress of Alhama. King Fernando soon arrived to support the Marquis, and the Spanish army then set out on an assault on the powerful Muslim city of Loja. A series of campaigns conducted by King Fernando resulted in serious losses for Islamic Granada, culminating in massive crusader victories at Loja and Moclin. By the spring of 1491, Isabella and Fernando had captured all of the Emirate of Granada, except for the walled city of Granada itself. Muhammad XII begged the king and queen to allow him to submit and become their vassal, but the Spanish monarchs would settle for nothing but Christian rule in Granada. Finally, on January 2nd, 1492, Muhammad presented his formal surrender to Isabella and Fernando.
Queen Isabella is perhaps best known for funding Columbus. Peter, what can you tell us about this?
It was with Isabella's backing that Christopher Columbus was able to afford his voyage to the New World. Not only did this bring wealth to Spain, but the lands discovered were now owned by Castile. When the Native Americans were brought back as slaves, Isabella demanded they be set free.
Spain prospered under her rule and entered a golden age. She died after withdrawing from the government in 1504 and is buried in Granada in the south of Spain.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. I'd like to thank everyone for joining me, and I hope you learned a lot about Queen Isabella I of Castile. See you next time. Bye.